You know, folks, ever since Joe Biden dropped out of the race and Kamala Harris surged forward, she's done everything right. She's actually put on a master class as to how to go about taking on Donald Trump. I've heard so many people over the years say that Trump is a hard guy to debate, and I think that he definitely is a hard guy to debate because he loves to muddy the water and create a lot of chaos. But Kamala absolutely baited him every step of the way, and he fell for it every time. And I have watched presidential debates since I was a kid, and I will go back and talk about those presidential debates with my friends. I nerd out about politics, I really do, and so I can sit and talk with my friends about Bush and Clinton and Bush looking at his watch. Um, all the moments in time where you realize that someone just had the better of somebody. And out of all the presidential debates that I've watched in my lifetime, I really feel the one that Harris did with Trump, where she just baited him every step of the way and he fell for it. I just thought it was a brilliant masterclass of a debate, and everything she's done so far, she's just been on the right path to defeating him and to just showing him for who he truly is. And we all saw the disastrous set down that Trump had with the black journalist. I'm gonna show you a couple of clips here to compare things. So I guess we'll just start right out of the gate. As bad as I hate to do this, we'll start right out of the gate, and I want to show you. Again, let's take a look because I want you guys to see them side by side. That's the whole point here. I really want you guys to see these things side by side. Let's take a look at how Trump reacted at the black journalist, and then we're going to talk about how Kamala really showed him up.
Own supporters, including Republicans on Capitol Hill, have labeled Vice President Kamala Harris, who is the first Black and Asian American woman to serve as vice president and be on a major party ticket, as a DEI hire. Is that acceptable language to you? And will you tell those Republicans and those supporters to stop it?
How do you define DEI? Go ahead. How do you define
diversity, equity, inclusion?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Is that what your definition?
That is
give me a definition then. Would you give me a definition
DEI.
of that? Give me a definition.
Sir, I'm asking you a question, a very direct question.
Define it for me if you
I just defined it, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a black woman?
Well, I can say no. I think it's maybe a little bit different. So I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much, and she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?
She is always identified as a black woman. She went to a historically black college.
I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn and she became a black person.
Just to be clear, sir, do you believe that
I think somebody should look into that too when you continue in a very hostile, nasty tone.
It's a direct.
Donald Trump comes off, I've said so many times, like a WWE villain, like a heel in a wrestling match. And it's always like he's going for cheap heat. To me, he's always trying to, he's not really even trying to work for the heat. That's what cheap heat is. Cheap heat is when you do something that you're not even really trying to work for. And that's what Trump always seems to do to me. The way that he just comes back, I've never been asked such a nasty question. How terrible it is of you to ask me that. It was a fair question. Out of everything that Donald Trump has said about the black community, that was absolutely a fair question to ask. But of course, he's going to start crying that everything was loaded and rigged against him. So what does Kamala do? She goes out and she sits down and talks with black journalists. And when you put the two in perspective, when you set them side by side, in contrast, it ain't even close as to how much more presidential Kamala Harris looks here. And I want to start with this clip because she is talking about that. She's asked about, are we better off than we were 4 years ago? And I love her answer. Take a look.
4 years ago, when we came in during the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. We came in during the worst public health epidemic in centuries. We came in after the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And a lot of it due in large part to the mismanagement by the former president as it relates to COVID and obviously January 6th. And we had then a lot of work to do to clean up a mess.
Now, I do want to cut in right there just for a moment to point out that she had to start off by saying where we've been. I know a lot of people will see that and they'll say, well, she's just blaming Trump for everything. Well, you have to start with where you came in, and then you have to talk about where we're going. Take a look.
As of today, we have created over 16 million new jobs, over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs. We have the lowest Black unemployment rate in generations. We have invested in small businesses, and they're to the benefit of many people, but including Black small businesses, some of the highest rate of creation of new Black small businesses in years. We have done the work of capping the cost of prescription medication for our seniors for issues like insulin. And again, I'm speaking to the Black journalists who care about all people, but in particular, I'll talk about the impact on Black people, where we know Black folks are 60% more likely to be diagnosed with diabetes. And we have now finally capped the cost of insulin for our seniors at $35 a month, capped the cost of prescription medication for our seniors at $2,000 a year, because we, unlike the former president who promised to do it, we finally have allowed Medicare to negotiate drug prices against the big pharmaceutical companies. And these are just some of the accomplishments. Is the price of groceries still too high? Yes. Do we have more work to do? Yes.
And notice, folks, how she said there's more work to do. That's something that we never heard from Donald Trump. Trump always said we had the best economy. We were the best president of all time. I did more for anybody than anyone's ever done in history. It's always such over-the-top rhetoric with Trump that it was never that he had more work to do. It was that he had already done it. He had already accomplished everything. The level of arrogance the guy has is just off the charts. But she sits there and tells what they've accomplished and explains we still have more to do. And I was glad to get to hear her talk about more of the accomplishments, because so many times we've heard people say, well, what has she done, man? What has she done? Why ain't she fixed all of our problems? She's been in there. Why ain't she fixed it? And these are the same people who will turn around and say it doesn't matter who Trump picks to be the VP because the VP really doesn't do anything. So there's really no making that make sense. But Kamala is someone who answers questions with compassion, and she also answers them very stern. And I think she's got a very good balance between those two things, especially when she's asked about what's going on in Springfield, Ohio. Take a look.
I mean, my heart breaks for this community. You know, there were children, elementary school children, who it was school photo day. You remember what that's like? Going to school on picture day? Who were dressed up in their best, got all ready, knew what they were going to wear the night before, and had to be evacuated. Children. A whole community put in fear. And I'll say a couple things about it. One, you know, I learned a long time ago in my career, having a background as a prosecutor, when you have these positions, when you have that kind of microphone in front of you, you really ought to understand at a very deep level how much your words have meaning. I learned at a very young stage in my career that the meaning of my words could impact whether somebody was free or in prison.
It's just such a breath of fresh air to me to hear someone talk about personal responsibility and realizing, you know what, my words matter. The things that I say matter. And so if I put something out into the world, there will be consequences for that. It's so refreshing to hear that, because in Trump's world, there's no accountability. And it's so frustrating to me as someone who studied politics my entire life. I grew up with a Republican Party that was all about pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, and they were all about personal responsibility and taking accountability. And they just completely lost sight of that over the years when they got behind, especially when they got behind Donald Trump. They just kicked it into overdrive and went away from everything that they ever stood for or everything they ever believed in. But it's so good to have someone who's speaking common sense. And when we wake up every day knowing that Kamala Harris is our Madam President, knowing that Tim Walz is Vice President, knowing they're going to work for us, and we can start leaving all the hateful rhetoric of Trump behind, those are going to be some good days to look forward to. But this last clip I want to show you is where she's talking about guns. And again, anyone that says the Democrats are coming for your guns, all I would say to you is, buddy, they've been saying that since I was a kid. It's never happened yet. But Kamala comes here with a really good common sense answer. Take a look.
Yes, I am a gun owner, and Tim Walz is a gun owner, and we're not trying to take anybody's guns away from them. But we do need an assault weapons ban. Assault weapons are designed to kill a lot of human beings quickly,
yes,
and have no place, and
yes.
have no place. I'm going to get to it.
Yes.
And have no place on the streets of a civil society. We need universal background checks, which, to your point about handguns, is about saying that it is just reasonable to want reasonable gun safety laws that say we should do background checks, that we ought to know. It's just reasonable. You might want to know before someone can buy a lethal weapon if they've been found by a court to be a danger to themselves or others. You might just want to know.
And respectfully, we do understand that.
But you're asking
yes.
about...
I'm asking specifically about handguns, because many of those handguns are purchased in places.
Universal background checks apply to handguns.
Yes.
They do.
But in many instances, those handguns aren't even bought lawfully. Yes.
Which is why I also have been very adamant for years. In fact, I myself protested at a gun show probably 10, 15 years ago about the gun show loophole and why we need to close that. Because what ends up happening is that gun shows at flea markets, gun dealers are not, under existing law in the past, required to register their sales. And so you are exactly right that a lot of homicides, for example, a good number of them, I don't have the statistic in front of my mind, are committed with illegally purchased guns. And that's why we need to address each entry point in the issue, including universal background checks, closing the gun show loophole, and what we need to do as a general matter to focus not only on reaction to crime, but prevention of crime.
Now, notice when her and the journalist kind of starts to get just a little bit combative there, and they're asking questions and they're interrupting. Trump never allows that. The minute someone interrupts, it's like, oh, you're a nasty person. You're the worst person. Let me finish. Hold on. You know, this is a nasty network. This is fake news. Kamala handles herself with grace. She handles herself with dignity. And she's just such a breath of fresh air. I think that's it more than anything, and that's why that I wanted to talk about this interview that she did with the black journalist, because we sat there and watched the train wreck that was Donald Trump's, and I only wanted to pick out that one clip and remind you of that. I didn't want to put you through watching all the other ones. We know what a garbage human that he really is, and we didn't need to be reminded, but I think sometimes we really do need to put it in and show people the contrast, because there are people that watches my videos that disagrees with every word I say, and they still tune in to watch it. And they still message me every day to tell me why they disagreed with me. So that's why that I think it's important that I show the contrast between the two, because if you're ever going to win over anyone in an argument, I think where you really can win people over is when you show the difference, when you show them up, hold them up side by side. I love guitars, folks. I love to go out and look and check out new guitars. What do you do when you go buy a new guitar or a new car? You hold two guitars up beside each other and see which one plays the best, looks the best, and is the one that can get the job done for you. And I feel like a lot of times that's what you have to do when you're looking at people running for office. You have to hold them up and compare the two. And Kamala Harris is like just a brand new Rolls Royce, and Donald Trump is like a beat up 84 Datsun. It's just like this thing. It's time to put this thing to bed. There's nothing left. And so I really am looking forward to having Madam Vice President. And I think it's important that we always, when we do look back at Trump, we put him, I think the box that Trump needs to be in is he needs to be in the box of what not to do. And when we're raising our children and when we're talking about politics going forward, it'll always be like, well, now remember what not to do. And we go back and play the clips of Trump. I think he will forever be that. And I think if he has a legacy, that's what I want it to be. I want it to be the guy that most people won't admit that they ever voted for. I would like it to be that most people won't name their kids Donald anymore. Sorry to any friend out there that's got that name. But I want his name to become like Judas or Benedict, or I don't want people to even name their kid after him. So, I think as we go forward, I want him to be the guy that we look back on and we go, hey kids, that's how you don't do it right there. So yeah, that was looking at the two side by side. And when you look at the two side by side, the choice couldn't be more clear.